Hey guys, this is one of my ES2 OMC guitars that I'm working on. This one in beautiful Zero Coat. I just finished the rosette here, and I'm going to show you how to make one of these rosettes. An outer ring that is cut of just solid Zero Coat, and then the inner ring, which is outlined in white fiber strip material. The inner ring is also Zero Coat, but it's Zero Coat that is laid out in a radial pattern with the grain pointing inward, and then the lines are cut so that the outside line is offset to the inside line, which is what creates this offset look to the rosette. In the end, it's going to go something like that. See, now you could put it straight down like this, but I like to angle it away from the cutaway because this is going to be a cutaway guitar. That angling away from the cutaway, I think, just stylistically, those two elements kind of play off of each other in a pretty cool way. And here is an example of this type of rosette on a finished guitar. So now, continuing that theme of that rosette, I'm going to make a rosette in this same style, but using these materials here. This is tiger myrtle, which really, it's just myrtle. Tiger describes this very crazy looking figure here, right? Pretty easy to imagine where they got that name from. And this wood here is redwood, and this is a very figured redwood. I actually spent about 3 hours at Hearn Hardwoods the other day trying to pick out the perfect top for this, and I think I nailed it. Some might say it's a little excessive. I think the way to complement this highly figured back and sides was to have an equally figured top to go with it. So this is just going to look incredible. And it's going to look even more incredible when I make a rosette like this out of these two materials right here. So like I mentioned before, this was made strictly out of the material from the back, with the exception of the white fiber strips. In this case, I'm going to do something a little bit different, just because I think it'll work better in this situation. I'm going to use the tiger myrtle for the outside ring, and for the inside offset ring, I'm going to use small pieces of offcuts from the top itself. At least that's the plan right now. We'll see as it goes and evolves. It's always kind of a ever-evolving thing, any of these processes, and so I might adapt it as I go and do something a little bit different. Maybe I'll even add some other artistic embellishment that I'm not thinking of at the moment. So anyway, let's go ahead and let's dig into this and make ourselves a radial offset rosette. Okay, so here we are so far. I've just fitted the redwood into the tiger myrtle, and at this point I have to decide whether I want to add a nice stunning strip of maple here, and I think that is what I'm going to do because the maple really adds some separation between the two pieces. I have done these before without any separation, and sometimes it's appropriate, but most of the time adding some sort of fiber strip in between just creates that separation that you need. Now what I'm going to do is just go back to the Dremel and take a little bit off of these side walls, off of both side walls, both the inside and the outside, and then I'm going to keep checking with the fiber strip until it just squeaks in there. So now it's just barely starting to press in halfway around. I have the inner rings all the way in and the outer ring. As I press around, it doesn't quite want to go, and you don't want to force these things. You want it to go in snug, but you don't want to have to really force it in because you're just going to damage the channel. So I'm going to have to back this out and then do just one more hairline pass on that outside edge. This is actually the best situation that you want to be in, where it's mostly there, because now I know I can just kiss that outside edge with the Dremel bit and it'll snap right in. Okay, I've sanded this most of the way down. Here, let me back it up real quick so you can see what the round's like. So like I said, I sanded this most of the way down simply because you realize after a while of building guitars that it really doesn't make sense to constantly sand things to all the way down to 220 grit and make it look all fancy and pretty just so you can take a picture of it and post it on Instagram, when you're going to actually be sanding this again once it's installed into the top, and then again later on when you're prepping it for finish. Yeah, you learn after even just a couple iterations of building a guitar or building anything to not constantly sand every part of it to a finished look, you know, just so you can look at it or take a pretty picture. You don't want to end up sanding through parts of this ring later because you've over sanded it. So unfortunately we're going to have to wait to see it in its final beautiful form. But you can kind of picture what it's going to look like once all that super glue shadow is sanded away. And so now you've seen the most interesting part here. Now the next part is simple. I'm just going to cut this out with no radial offset like you would for a normal solid wood rosette. Alright, look at that. I've sanded this down a little bit, really enough just to make it reasonably flush with the surrounding surface. As I mentioned before, no need to take it all the way, so it does look a little, you can still see the glue squeeze out in various areas. But I'm going to go ahead and rub some mineral spirits on here just to see what it will really look like in the end. This will bring out the figure of it as much as it can be brought out under 80 or 120 grit, and it will also kind of hide those blotchy glue areas. As you can see here, it looks more like it is cleaned up and completely flush. Much better looking. Here's just a fretboard template that I have, so we can see what it really looks like with that ugly gap there covered up. Which, by the way, that ugly gap there is something that is necessary to get this fit as perfect as it is. You need a little bit of flexibility in the rosette, otherwise it's too rigid and it's really hard to squeeze the fiber strips in to get a seamless fit if there's no give anywhere in the rigid loop. And since part of that is going to be covered up anyway, I can put that break in the rosette right under the fretboard tongue, just like that. So yeah, it will look something like, let me line this up more appropriately, something like that. And also on display this evening, I have the Zero Coat rosette. I've just installed that as well. This is the same one I showed you earlier, so now you can see what that looks like in its home. One thing that I'm really excited to see once this is all said and done, the guitar is actually complete, is the fact that when this sound hole is cut out, you'll be able to see the Zero Coat on the back through the sound hole, and I just think that's going to add an extra dimension to what's going on here on the top when you're looking through the sound hole, seeing the rosette and this part of the back at the same time. I'm just excited to really see how much of an effect that actually is, or how much I'm just kidding myself. But either way, I'm very happy with how this looks right now. If you learned something here, please give this video a like and subscribe so you can be notified when I release a new DIY guitar making video every Friday. And if you want to really learn more, take one of my structured online courses at ericschaferguitars.com, or register for a hands-on guitar building workshop here with me in Burnville, Pennsylvania.